Everything's fine. Do you have the Weesis thing in there? Wacky Martin Day? Yeah. Yeah. There's a little graphic that they posted on one of their channels that you could show up on the screen. Oh, you don't know? Testing, testing. This one? Huh? No. It'll be in one of the other channels. I think it's in. I don't remember each one. Oh, there you go. Don't worry about it. All right, cool. I kind of did it. That's all I made this like myself. I made my first guy. I think it's all right. Because the version of the time. Again, real quick. I think we're okay. There might be something with the audio. I'm not exactly sure how to fix it though. Because that's off right now, right? Oh, it's on right now. That's why. Okay, then yeah, I think we're ready to go. Whenever you will. What?
We'll figure it out. It's, James coming up with these.
I already put that away. So escape. Escape. Go to the zoo. Actually, that's not be. Yeah, we're good now. Perfect. Should be good.
We done?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to RITSEC. We'll start off with join the Discord if you have not. You need the Discord to sign in. Make sure you guys sign in. We will have pizza today. Make sure you guys sign in. We will be checking. Check the calendar. We got some cool events for you guys coming up. Join the RITSEC mailing list as well. And here's for announcements. Meet the sponsors, guys. Clap it up. Clap it up for the sponsors. All right. Thank you, guys. Oh, it's not going.
Just continue. Keep going.
All right.
Keep going.
Yeah.
We just did. That's why.
All right. Guys, follow our social media. Check out our YouTube. You guys did a co-op this summer. Scan this QR code. Tell us about it. Good information for the club. Thank you. All right, we have a mentorship social event. If you're a mentor or mentee, please show up. We got some cool socializing for us to do. It will be after the general meeting in the club room. So try to show up if you guys can. We also have IRSEC Blue Team workshops, one happening on the 5th and on the 26th from 10:30 to 12. We also have WESIS Lockheed Martin Day. Make sure to check this one out on October 10th, 4 p.m. here in the conference rooms. And yeah, we have Career Fair Prep by Dan LaChance and James Southcott. Yeah, I think in 2 I get a rubber ducky.
Right now?
You be
That's actually kind of good. Shares for you and
No, yeah. Oh, you gotta join this year. They're sweet.
So can I get my UBC today? If we actually come in on time? Wouldn't that be nice?
And blocked out.
Yeah, join from browser.
Join from browser. Does it matter? Yeah. Oh, okay. Should I keep my video on? No, I think it's not.
No.
Turn your mic off. Fine. All right.
If you can close some of that stuff up too.
Whoopsies.
You sure he's gonna?
About to. Hang on. Shameless plug.
Well, it's also I want you to get your classes.
All right, let's get this thing started then. So, all right, starting off with James. Who am I?
Hey y'all, I'm James. I think most of you probably know me by now. Big Jesus guy. Just finished up an internship at Apple InfoSec, as we're going to see in a minute. Third year honors BSMS cybersecurity student here at RIT. I am local. I'm from Rochester. Go Bills. Go Bills. I am the CCDC captain, so be there at tryouts tonight. I'm also the red team chief. It's at Wednesdays from 6 to 7. I'm on the club volleyball team, play a lot of other sports, listen to a lot of country music, and I go line dancing a lot. You can find me pretty much every Thursday and Saturday night at Nashville's. And I love Chick-fil-A. If you ever ask me to go to Chick-fil-A, I'm not going to say no.
Let's see if this one works.
Oh.
Can everyone hear me?
We can have our own mics now.
Oh yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Dan LaChance. I'm the president of RITSEC, and I'm a third-year cybersecurity major. This past summer, I interned at Microsoft on the Sentinel team. I love driving. I'm an avid hiker, rock climber. I love all you can eat. They hate to see me coming, and go Bills.
What's your favorite food, by the way?
I do love cauliflower.
It's actually the special today, the chef special. The side is
All
cauliflower.
right. Moving on.
So for our co-op history, starting off with me, my first internship I did at a small local real estate company called Conifer Realty. There I did a whole lot of Azure. I did just about everything Azure. I was pretty much just an IT intern there. Yeah, they kind of just gave me the keys to the company. It was only like a 500-person company, only 150 corporate employees. By the end of my internship, my whole team had gotten fired. It was pretty awesome, good experience, and ultimately led me to getting my internship at Apple, where I was last summer. I'm an intern at Apple InfoSec, which is the business security org. I'm not cool like Sharad and Seer. He does product security. But I still got to do a lot of cool things. We protect basically the whole cloud. So like all of your iMessage data, make sure all the services like Apple Music, podcast, all that cool stuff work. A lot of cool stuff like that. There I did some internal XDR dev, made some cool features, and I did a lot of cool binary analysis, making sure that you guys aren't allowed to download malware onto your Macs and your iPhones. 99.9% sure I'll be returning to Apple InfoSec on the advisory or on the adversary emulation or ISML team next summer.
All right. So my first internship was at Travelers Insurance, which is actually now a sponsor of the club. So they're a silver sponsor. They're going to be in person for our Career Fair Eve event, and I believe also online for a virtual one next week. And so there I was on a team of 10 interns as a software engineer, and pretty much what I did there was I did databasing using DynamoDB on AWS for an internal web application. And from a lot of that experience, I was able to get my AWS Cloud Practitioner certification and completely paid for by the company. So if you have the opportunity to do that, I would highly recommend it. Just as a side note, because getting that certification also helped me get my Microsoft job. So I did third-party cloud adversary simulation for log generation on Microsoft Sentinel. So basically, they want to expand Sentinel from just an Azure product to be to support third parties as well, so that they can increase their customer space. And so I will be returning there full time on the same team next year. Right. So, fair. Oh yeah, make sure to sign it. That's a side note right there. Yeah, thank you. I love everybody pulling out their phones. All right, so this is what we're gonna be going through today. So based off preparation, how to get a good resume, what should be on your resume, that kind of thing, your online presence so that you can be set up to connect with all of your recruiters on LinkedIn. Then how to find a job, so career fairs, interviews, going through that whole process. And then once you get a job, we don't want you to get fired. And networking is important once you get there because connections, once you break into the cybersecurity space, connections are everything. All right. So starting with preparing resumes. Okay, so how to get started. We used to have Credle on here. It just says a little note. Credle is no more, so sorry to everybody that uses Credle. But there are a couple of other options that you can do. Google Docs, Microsoft Word, resume.lol, Overleaf. And so Overleaf is a shell that you can use in order to compile LaTeX. And so LaTeX, that formatting down at the bottom, that's my personal preference. It's like a fairly steep learning curve once you get started, but once you figure everything out, you can create a resume in 5 minutes and have it formatted perfectly because it's just better than Microsoft Word.
I disagree. I have a Word resume. It's suited me for a long time, and I think it looks great. We have our preferences. I just put these on there too, so that there's not one size fits all. We're gonna give you guys a lot of advice today. Pick and choose. I don't want to say pick and choose what you follow, but there's a lot of ways to do and get the same things accomplished.
Absolutely. Just make sure that it scans properly, really. All right, so what should be on your resume and what format should it follow? Generally, we recommend that you start with an objective just so the recruiter knows what you're looking for. So if you're looking for a spring co-op, put that on there. Summer co-op, put that on there. Full-time, that's what should be in your objective. Then your education should be next because that's really, at this point, the most important thing that you have on your resume, unless you have crazy job experience already, which is fairly unlikely. Then your work experience, so anything, really anything, but we'll cover that in a minute. Then your activities, projects and competitions, conferences, volunteer experience, certifications, all that stuff. And then way down at the bottom, you should put your skills. So your skills are really just for the ATS scanner to pick you up and move you to the next round so a human will actually look at your resume.
What's an ATS scanner?
I actually don't know what it stands for.
I don't know what it stands for either, but it's that
applicant tracking system.
It's the thing that automatically scans your resumes and uses AI and ML to filter out the bad resumes from the good ones before they get to any recruiter or person who is manually reviewing your resume. That is something to think about, and we'll talk about that a bit later.
Absolutely. All right, so starting off with the objective.
Yeah, you do it.
All right. So objective, this is where you want to explain what you're actually looking for. So you're starting summer 2026 for a co-op internship, full-time position. This is where that's going to go. And then also the key aspect of this is to put in there your specialization. So what in cybersecurity are you really looking for in a career, and what do you have the most previous experience in? Because if this is at the top of your resume, it will catch the recruiter's eye, and if it's exactly what they're looking for, you got yourself an interview, guys. So yeah.
Yeah, as Dan said, the next most important section is education. This is, as students, what really sets us apart, right? We are getting this education. We're in school right now. We go to RIT. Most of us are getting a BS in cybersecurity. There's probably a few CS people in here in computer science. There's a few things you're going to want to have in here. I've included both of our resumes just to see. There's not one size fits all for this. You're going to want to have your expected graduation year, your minor or immersion that you're doing, if you think it's worthwhile to put on there. Then there's a few optional things. Your GPA, not as required as it used to be. This is something, if you guys are curious, my mom's a recruiter, so I learned a lot of this from her. She said we typically recommend 3.25 minimum to put it on GPA. She says 3 or above. If she sees GPA not on there, she just assumes it's below a 3. So if you're around that 3 to 3.25 range and above, definitely put your GPA on there. Also, relevant coursework. This is something that I think we would both recommend. Tailor to a specific job. If you're applying for a reverse engineering role, put CSEC 201 and 202 on there. If you're applying for a sysadmin job, put all the networking classes on there and sysadmin classes, stuff like that. You can tailor your resume. We have a lot of good coursework here, but when you kind of just throw all of it on there, it can overwhelm these recruiters who, are recruiting for this one specific thing. So this is something I would definitely tailor to a specific job you're applying to. Skills, I'm not sure why this section is next. This should be at the bottom of your resume, but it's next in the slide deck. You're going to want to categorize this from what you know most to what you know at least. You're going to want to put this into different categories as well, programming languages, software, OSs. I wouldn't put soft skills. I have a soft skills section in there. Honestly, I should probably take it out. And then be comfortable talking about every single thing in this section. You're going to see that as a common theme. You should be able to talk about everything in your resume. Do not BS any of it, because a technical person interviewing you will see right through it. And this you can also customize the job posting as well. If you have a lot of skills and not a lot of room, definitely tailor this to the application, because this is what you're putting in there for the applicant tracking system to scan.
Yeah, this is pretty much the most important section to be changing and tailoring to the application that you're applying to, or the job that you're applying to. And another note on that, like soft skills, it might be worth putting on like some of your interests. That's what we've been hearing from some of the recruiters. Put on some of your interests for the career fair. Do not keep it on your resume for like online scanning. But if you just want like a conversation starter with a recruiter, get the jitters out, something like that, it's oftentimes something good to have on your resume when you're, again, in person.
Yeah. The next most important one, work experience. This is going to be the bread and butter if you already have a co-op. If you don't, still have a work experience section. I cannot emphasize this enough. I don't care if it was putting the fries in the bag or pumping gas for someone, right? You should still have this on there. People want to know that you have worked a job before and understand how a job works, right? I got questions all the time about my first two jobs. My first one was doing Nerf parties. I would like manage parties for little kids shooting Nerf blasters at each other when it was their birthday. You would not believe how many recruiters asked me questions about that job, right? And then similarly, I worked as a line cook for a couple years. Recruiters want to talk to you about this. Honestly, couldn't tell you why, but it shows that you've worked for a job and you've put some sort of effort in. You're going to want to sort these in order from latest to oldest. These are a few very important bullet points that I've learned from many different people across the years. Every sentence should start with an action word. Collaborated, developed, engineered, designed, managed, worked, reviewed. Action word always goes as the first word of the sentence. Next, this is something I learned from my co-op prep panel that is very true. The ABC method for formatting your sentences. Utilized A to do B, enabling the business to do C. I put a real simple example here. Developed Python scripts, automating common incident response tasks, enabling the team to handle incidents faster. This shows what you used, what you did, and what it did for the business, which is super important for many of the non-technical people looking at your resume. If you can, you're going to want to name as many tools, languages, software as possible, because when a company sees that, then they don't have to retrain you on that software. And also quantitative data. First in RITSEC out of 15 teams. Wrote 10-page report. Gained company $1 billion. Yeah, sure. But yeah, that action word and ABC sentence structure, very important, does wonders for your resume. Next, extracurriculars. This is where you're just going to put a whole lot of things. There is really no one size fits all for this. I've seen a million different ways to structure this. I have it listed as activities. Dan has it listed as extracurriculars and projects. You can really do whatever you want with this section, right? This is where you're going to put RITSEC. This is where you're going to put interest groups, competition teams, personal projects, competitions that you do, all sorts of stuff. Anything that you think makes you stand out, shows passion, shows that you're interested, shows that when you get this job, you're not going to just be a little boring intern. You're actually going to be enthusiastic and care about the work that you're doing. Super important section of your resume. Anything to add on this?
I mean, yeah, to show that It's on, right? Okay, just show that you're passionate. This is where you show your passion for cybersecurity. They, as James said, they don't just want a robot that codes. That's what ChatGPT is for, guys. And what they want is a person that they can connect to and that is passionate and is they know is going to be good for the business.
This is something I've been saying. They want someone they can go to lunch with, right? Like they don't want someone who's just like, gonna sit at their desk, maybe say hi when they walk in, hi when they leave. They want someone they can like, go to lunch with, go on a corporate walk with, get coffee with, Interns are the fun part of these full-timers jobs. They're there forever and we're there for 3 months. So they like seeing our journeys and they like talking to us.
All right, things to keep in mind about applying to jobs. Start as early as you can. If you're starting now, you should get on that. And moving forward, say this is like your second year and you're just starting now. Next year, try to start as early as you can, even like late summer. So August is when I started applying to jobs. And then into September is when I started like hearing back from a ton of companies. And by October 13th of last year, I had my offer. So
to add to that, I started in June last year and I got my Apple offer in November. So you're going to want to start as early as possible. If you haven't started, it's not too late, but start right now.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely start right now, and don't wait until the career fair. So right now, if you haven't started already, start applying to jobs right now. Go ahead. All right, cool. Also, start thinking about those questions of like where do you want to work? Like where do you want to end up in the U.S., East Coast, West Coast, different country, Canada, Mexico? I don't know. Start thinking about those questions, and if you're at the point in your academic career that you can be a little bit more selective, don't waste your time applying to jobs where you don't really see yourself working. So yeah, and then also, I can't stress this enough. Research the roles and the people that are going to be recruiting you. So research like the people and what they do, where else have they worked, what have they done, and this goes for the interviewers and the people that you'll be talking to at career fair. And then learn about the roles that they have posted, because if you know what the company is, you already know the roles that you're interested in, you ask like direct questions about those specific roles, that's going to go a long way for the recruiter, and I think you have a note on this.
I have slides on everything you just said later on.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Okay, and then talk to upperclassmen who have co-op experience and customize to the posting. So like we said, change the skills section. That's always a good move.
I'll take slide in people's LinkedIn DMs.
True. Very true.
Here's a couple resume examples, mine and Dan's. Just if you're curious about how something, should be formatted. This is mine, written in Word. I do kind of like Word just because it's different than LaTeX. If we go to Dan's on the next slide, in my opinion, all LaTeX resumes look the exact same, and I don't like that. I like mine to look a little different. But you can see there's no one size fits all, as long as you got the information on there, you got it in the right order,
True.
Your sentences work the right way, and it can all pass the resume scanner. It's barbecue chicken.
All right.
Anything else for this?
No, that's all I got.
All right. Online presence. This is where you're gonna want to prepare your LinkedIn, your GitHub, and do some presentations like we're doing right now, so you can be posted on the RITSEC YouTube. You're going to want to include some of these on your resume as well, maybe in the activity section. LinkedIn. Have a good LinkedIn. Keep it up to date. There's so many different sections of your LinkedIn that you can add. Up here, this doesn't even scratch the surface, right? I have like the banner part. Make sure you have a good, appropriate, simple banner. I just have the group picture of all of us that we took on the first day of convocation, I think it is called. Profile picture. So, a professional headshot. If you don't have a professional headshot, graduation photo, not a picture with you and your boys out on the town, right? A professional photo of just you.
And also not in the gown.
Yes.
Please have it be more professional than that. You don't want it to look like you just graduated high school.
Yeah. You're gonna want to, give a little short description about yourself in the about. I have incident response engineer, intern at Apple, honors BS cybersecurity student at RIT, business admin minor, 3.84 GPA. Stuff like that, super simple. Actually, could we go to my LinkedIn real quick? We'll do like a little, because there's some other sections below that I wish we had put on here. Ah, crap, it doesn't. Oh, it does, cool. Because there's some other things I think are really. Yeah, I do. Of course, I have LinkedIn hyperlinked. So posting, definitely important. Post for big events. I got this job. I competed in a competition. For all you competing in IRSEC, you should make a LinkedIn post after that. I think that was my first LinkedIn post. There's this big group picture we're going to take in the atrium together. You'll also take a team photo, throw those on LinkedIn. I had a great time competing in my first competition. Actually, let's just go to that because I think mine's a good example of this, short and sweet. If it'll load, holy crap.
Well,
I don't even know why I reposted that. Here we go. Right, this is my first ever LinkedIn post. It was from IRSEC my freshman year. Really didn't know what I was doing, but I wanted to, put some online presence out there. This is my team. I don't know if anybody else from this team is Lexi even here. No, I think I'm the only one from this team in the room right now. Right, super simple, short and sweet. All it needs to be. And then there's a whole bunch of good sections that you could throw on your LinkedIn. Experience, have this fully filled out. Yeah, you can see I have it all the way down to my first job working, playing, Nerf with little kids, organizing birthday parties. Education, have all the skills you've learned on there. Certifications and licenses, skills, courses. Do this. This is where you're going to put all of your courses and just put all of them on there, right? Such a good section on LinkedIn that I don't see utilized as much as it should be. All right, thanks. That's my little rant about LinkedIn. It's so good. Please use it. Connect with people. Connect with us. Yeah. Just start connecting with people. These are all a handful of people that are in some way related to the club or know RIT students and will probably accept your LinkedIn connection.
They're like random people that Anthony decided to. If you don't know who Anthony is, he graduated last year and he was the president 2 years ago. And he pretty much made it a game to see who the highest up person at every single company he could connect with. So you'll see a bunch of those like sponsors of the club. So Patel, security risk advisors. But then you also just see like Intel, Sentinel One, just like these kind of crazy companies that he's just connected with, the CISO, chief of staff, that kind of thing. Make it a game.
Make sure your GitHub's up to date. Put a personal project or two on there. You can make it look really fancy like Brad's does. I don't even know how to do that, but keep it up to date. I don't think there's anything else for GitHub.
Yeah, I mean, keep it up to date. Anything that you're proud of, make it public, and be that have that as a place where people can go to kind of see what you have experience in and your interest in coding.
And all of these presentations, so if you do an education or a research presentation, that's posted on the RITSEC YouTube. You can link that on your resume. I do.
All right, finding the job at career fairs. So career fair again next week, and I think we actually have a slide on it. Yeah, so next Wednesday, October 8th is career fair. It's in the Gordon Fieldhouse from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I would recommend, if you have the time, go for the whole time if you're still looking for a co-op, and talk to as many companies as you can.
Raise your hand if you're a first year. Okay, that's a lot of you. A lot of you might not necessarily be looking for jobs right now. Go to career fair. I went my first year. I got absolutely shunned by everyone there. You're going to get shunned by everyone there. They're going to see your first year and be like, sorry, we're looking for upperclassmen. But the experience and understanding how career fair works and understanding how to navigate career fair is incredibly useful for your next year. By the time it rolled around to our second years, we knew exactly what to do. We knew how to navigate the floor because it's a lot. We're going to see there's a lot of companies and you don't have a lot of time there. Go to career fair, practice talking to companies. Don't even act like you're actually asking for a job. They might give you one if you're looking for one. You might get lucky and get a co-op as a first year student. You should definitely strive for one. You're gonna set the expectations low. You're probably gonna get shunned by a lot of it, but the experience is so useful. for the next time you go, and you will be so much more prepared, and you'll just be pulling up from half court, and everything is going to be going in.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, there's also the Career Fair Eve and Career Fair Eve. So the virtual one is that Eve. That's on the Monday of next week, and then Tuesday is our RITSEC in-person Career Fair Eve. So I would recommend going to those because these sponsors are specifically supporting our organization in order to send people to these recruiting events. And they're very interested in hiring just security people. That's why they come to us. And some of these companies actually don't even go to the RIT Career Fair because they just want to come to our event. So highly recommend going. And I'll see you there. All right. Everything else on here. WESIS Career Fair. The WESIS conference is TBD, but generally it's around April. And then just random career days. So like United has some SRA day, was I believe last week. Wegmans always has one, and then Lockheed Martin has one. Actually, probably a few every semester. So definitely recommend going to those because they do take note of it, and it does get put onto your application, even though you don't see it.
Yeah. For my upperclassmen, I'm curious, how many of us have you guys have all gone to these tables? Has anybody gotten interviews from these tables? I know I have. Just like going to these random pop-up tables that these companies set up. Where was yours?
I was at the Career Fair last night.
Okay. Yeah, but like these companies will just set up tables. It might not be in the cybersecurity building. It might be in Golisano. It might be in the electrical engineering building. It might be in Saunders. But emails will go out about them. You might just like delete them automatically, but pay attention to those because they're super useful. You can learn a lot, and you might get an interview from it.
Absolutely. All right. The elevator pitch. You want to take this one?
Yeah. So the elevator pitch is, think of it's called an elevator pitch because you use it in the spot of if you were to be in an elevator and you had 60 seconds until the other person got off the floor, how would you pitch yourself to them in order so that they would want to hire you? Simple. The things on here, this is what you're going to want to use for career fair because you realistically only have enough time as if you would be in an elevator with that person. 60-second pitch, name, current year, major, your activities, your past work experience, accomplishments, why you're here today, right? Don't just spit all this information out. I'm looking for a co-op. I would like to work for your company. And I can't stress enough, be a real person when you're doing this. Be a human and don't shove a resume in their faces. And me and Dan are going to give a little demo. Hi, it's nice to meet you. Hi, my name's James Southcott. I'm a third-year cybersecurity major. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, James. I'm Bob. Nice to meet you. And what else can you tell me about yourself?
So, if you'd like to take a look at my resume, as you can see, I'm a third-year cybersecurity student. I'm in honors, BSMS. I'm pretty involved with CCDC, which is blah, 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 blah. I'm also the captain of Red Team, which is blah, 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 blah. I see that you have XYZ co-op posted online.
You do.
Could you tell me more about that?
Yes, I can. All right. So that's your elevator pitch, right? Now, you're in. You're in, guys. Let's get started on continuing that pitch. So I see you have blah, blah, blah on your resume. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So let's say at this point in the elevator pitch, I can nail that this guy is completely non-technical. He's straight from HR. He's straight from the Saunders College of Business, right? I'm not going to want to get into technical details with them because they don't know what that means. If I start explaining these technical details to my mother, who's a recruiter, she's not going to understand them. But if I tell Dan something along the lines of, I used this set of tools to do this, which did blank for the company. They understand business impact.
Oh, I like that. Business impact.
How much money it made, what time it saved, how it enabled people to do things. They understand that, right? They're not going to understand, I implemented Kubernetes at scale for our web application and imposed a web application firewall in front. No, they have no idea what that means. Don't say that, right? I analyzed malware at scale and did static analysis. No, they have no idea what that means, right? But now, let's say we're 30 to 45 seconds in, and I can tell Dan's an engineer. He's DevOps. He stays at work until 9 p.m. every night, right? That's when you get into your technical. Explain what you did, how you did it, all the tools that they know about. That's when you get technical. You need to read the room at career fair. Understand who you're talking to. It is so important.
And if any of those tools are posted on the job posting, those are all fair game to talk about. And if you can tell the person is an engineer, they're going to know all of those tools. So if you have experience in any of them, make sure that you tell them.
100%. Honestly, these two slides, I don't know. Okay, so career fair, right? It's Wednesday. There's going to be around 230 companies. I think the number right now is 235. Know what companies are going to be there. Download the Simplicity app. Read through the list. Figure out who has cybersecurity job postings. Because there's a lot of companies here that aren't hiring for cyber. Realistically, there's maybe 50, right? And realistically, there's a smaller subset of that are even sending people computer science adjacent to career fair. This is something we stressed a lot when we did the co-op practical analysis. There are going to be a section of engineering companies, awesome companies to work for. Lockheed Martin, L3 Harris, all the defense contractors, right? Awesome companies to work for. We've all had friends work for them. Have a great time. They are not at career fair to hire cybersecurity majors. Apply online for them.
Yeah.
Awesome companies to work for. Don't waste your time because there's going to be a long line of kids from Mechie and Mechie Tech and Double E, right? But there is going to be a pocket of 10 to 15 cybersecurity companies that are going to be your bread and butter. Cannot recommend enough. Talk to your friends. Text them during the day what's going on. Last year, Dan already had his co-op. He was just out there at career fair working the floor with us.
I'll be there again.
He was telling us, hey, people are having good conversations with this company. Get in the far right line for this company. People are having really good conversations with her. She just went to lunch. This is the next best one. Talk to your friends. See who they're having good conversation with because it matters. The difference between 3 different recruiters at a table, huge difference. Scope it out beforehand. Try to understand who's here hiring engineers, who's here hiring computer science, who's here hiring finance people. Because, no disrespect to finance, but that's not who we want to talk to. We want to talk to the computer science people, right? And you don't want to wait in line for 25 minutes and now all of a sudden you have to hop in the back of the other line, right? That's going to be a waste of your time. Realistically, you only have time to talk to maybe 15 of these companies if you're lucky. If you get there at 9 a.m., it doesn't start until 10 a.m. If you want to be first in, you have to get there around 9 a.m. If you get there at 9 a.m. and still until 4 p.m., you'll realistically be able to talk to 15 companies with a lunch break. It's going to be a long day. Have water. Have a friend like Dan who will bring you water and Gatorade.
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated.
And I also want to say another quick thing about a lot of those engineering companies. About 32% of this school is engineers. So they can just send a bunch of engineers and they'll have people to talk to for days. They are likely not sending computer scientists and they're likely not sending cybersecurity engineers. So like James said, those Lockheed Martins, Honeywells, I would probably stray away from them and then apply online because you're effectively going to have the same chance as if you were to just not go and stop by their table at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Career Fair Eve, they're here just for us, right? It's for RITSEC members. There's how many companies are we at?
So there will likely be between 6 and 8 companies. Right now, the expectation is 6.
Not between 6 and 7 companies.
No.
I'm going to be honest. The lines here are probably going to be longer than Career Fair. Is that crazy to say that?
That's not great. That's not crazy to say that. They'll be close to those big government contractors like Lockheed Martin because each of these companies, they're not all that big, but they're very interested in us. And so they can't send that many recruiters, but the fact that they are sending recruiters to just a student organization speaks volumes.
Yeah, it's huge. You're not going to waste any time here, though. You're going to sit in a line for maybe 5-10 minutes longer, but you're not going to waste any time, right? You're going to have good conversations with these people because they're here just for cybersecurity. They know what they're coming here for, especially for these companies. Do your research. Know what jobs they have posted. Know what the company does. If you can, talk to people. Know who they sent. At this point, I'm on a first-name basis with like the recruiters at SRA, right? Because they've come here 3 years in a row now. Like Bella just knows me by name. Right? And I'd say that's not uncommon for many of us who have been here for a few years, right? these companies have a good relationship with the club. So you want to start out a good relationship with them, especially if you've never talked to them before. Do your research. Know what positions they have open. You can see in my elevator pitch, that's one of the things I stress. I see you have XY position open. Can you tell me more about it? Right? Because there's going to be the little blurb in the description, yada, yada, yada. But if they know that you've looked at it, they get excited and they want to tell you more about that. They're going to note that on your resume. My mom's a recruiter at Career Fair. She split the resumes up into 2 piles. People who knew the company and knew what jobs were posted before they came, and people who didn't. The ones that they didn't know the company, she threw out. There's so many kids at Career Fair, they can afford to do stuff like that. That's the reality of it, right? Do your research before you come to Career Fair and Career Fair Eve. It is so worth it.
So I would also argue that like 70% of the work done for Career Fair is the couple of nights before. So that's doing all of your research with what companies are coming, what companies are hiring for cybersecurity. If you can find it, you likely won't. Who are they sending? And then what job postings do they have that you're interested in? And have a couple of key questions for each of those.
Yeah, and I think this is on the next slide. Yeah.
Look at
So
that.
we've covered a lot of this, but the thing I wanted to cover at the end, do not bring a backpack to Career Fair or Career Fair Eve. You're not going to have anywhere to put it. Technically, there's somewhere to put it for Career Fair, but it's like just this spot they designate as the backpack zone, and nobody's watching over it. So like your stuff can just get stolen. Just bring a Padfolio. If you don't have a Padfolio, a folder, a new folder. It maybe costs $2 at Staples. Have your resumes on one side, a pad of paper with your notes and blank paper on the other. You're going to want to have your notes ready for who you want to talk to, what jobs they have posted, because you're going to forget. It's a long day, right? And then blank piece of paper and a pen to take notes, or at least pretend to take notes, right? If they see you taking notes, they're impressed by that. And you never know. There might actually be something you want to write down, right? It's a long day. Some people are going to give you your emails. I think last Career Fair, I probably got 2 or 3 emails that they told me to email them directly.
It is a gold mine to get a company email that you can reach out to and that they tell you to reach out to. That means you're in.
That means they want you. So yeah, I don't think there's anything
Yeah,
else.
that's
Oh, this my little rant slide.
Yeah.
Wear a
Here we
suit
go.
and tie, please. Look professional. This is your first impression. This is something that Matt said yesterday at the co-op panel. You will never not get a job because you overdressed at Career Fair, but you will not get a job because you underdressed. There are certain companies and certain recruiters who will look at you and say you're underdressed and turn you away. There was someone who wore a graphic tee to Career Fair last year and came up to my mom and tried to hand her a resume, and she said no. She didn't even take the resume. She didn't even throw it in the trash. She said turn around, right? That's dress to impress. This is Career Fair. If you don't have any of these things, get them from Goodwill. There's no shame in going to Goodwill and like getting them and just spending $20, $30 on something that looks nice, and you can approach a recruiter and have a good conversation with them. If you already have nice things, try to get them ironed. Yes, Liz.
Also, there's a resource called Burns Closet. They have stores that close to where they keep. So if you are a nurse on or want to find something that feels good and professional, Burns Closet over in River.
So yeah, what Liz just said is repeating it for the stream. Is it Burns?
BERNS.
BERNS. So Burns at River Knoll. That's where you can go to pick up some like thrifted clothes.
Question there.
Don't forget, you need to make an appointment to go.
You need to make an appointment to go.
Thank you.
So make sure to do that. Thank you.
Also, if you have any questions about this presentation, please raise your hand and interrupt us so we can answer. Some other things. Learn how to shake a hand, especially for the guys. Learn how to shake a hand with another guy. Learn how to give a firm handshake. Please. Learn how to meet the webbing of your hand to their webbing. Learn how to shake a hand. Please shower and shave the morning of. Look presentable. Smell good. Wear deodorant. Look nice. And please talk like a human being. The first time, a couple times you go up to a company, you're going to fumble. Use the first 1 or 2 companies as a warm-up. Don't go to your best companies right away, especially because it's like 9 a.m. The recruiters are still drinking coffee. Like they're mentally not there, right? So they're not there. You're not there for the first couple. Like you're also their warm-up. Use the first couple as a warm-up because you're going to stumble. I've said some crazy things during
We all have.
Yeah, we all have like our crazy horror stories. Someone yesterday was like, when the recruiter introduced themselves, they like said the same name back to them like hi, the recruiter said, "Hi, I'm Matt," and the like student said, "Hi, I'm Matt," back to them, you're gonna mess up your first couple,
Did
right?
not match what was on the
Yeah,
resume.
yeah, it just wasn't his name at all. You're gonna screw up. Use the first couple as a warning.
And also, you're gonna get. I want to stress this enough. I don't know if I can stress it enough. Anyway, but you're gonna get a little bit sweaty. There are a ton of people, and when a ton of people get in this really cramped room together, it gets pretty hot. So you're gonna sweat. That's why deodorant is so important. And make sure that you're prepared for all of that.
Interviews.
All right. So, starting off with phone screenings, this is where a lot of companies are gonna send you first, just to talk to HR, go over just like brief things about your resume. You're gonna give your elevator pitch again, just a couple of common questions. Don't get stressed out about these, but be prepared for them. So have a couple more questions about the job posting that you're getting interviewed for ready, and then just know that you're likely going to be talking to HR, so be a human. They love to see that, and if you're able to just be a human, that's enough to get you to the next round.
Yeah, I have two perfect phone screening examples. My first co-op, the guy that was phone screening me happened to live where one of my first jobs was. He's like, "Wow, I love Manja Manja. I could see your work there." We literally talked for 10 minutes about this first job I had as a dishwasher and a cook. Nothing to do with the job. They just want to see you're a human being and you can have a conversation with another human being. It's that simple.
And then, I have a quick note about that too. With getting involved in RITSEC, if you start doing presentations and they're all public, sometimes you will actually get pushed past the phone screening already. Because when I applied to Microsoft, they just said no need to do a phone screening. We have we see that your presentation skills are up on the RITSEC YouTube, and so I just went to the actual technical interview round.
Yeah. You're gonna want to prep the 3 or 4 common questions for that. That's these 3 right here, right? The big one. Why do you want to work at company? Right? Why if especially if it's a big company, sell them on why you want to work for the company. Be the corporate glazer, right? With my interview at Apple, I gave the craziest answer for this, talking about how we did a case study in cybersecurity policy and law about Apple fighting the government on privacy and how I loved it and I actually did really like it. And it is what inspired me to work for Apple. But this is your time to sell HR on why you want to work for the company, right? And then, other little things. It's generally not more than 20 minutes. It's your time to sell them about why you want to work for them. So have answers to those questions prepped. Be able to talk about everything on your resume in a non-technical manner. And then have a few questions. You're going to see this as a common trend. For every interview, you should have 3 to 4 questions prepped for the end of your interview with the person. If you don't have any questions, that's not a good thing, right? At a minimum, what do next steps look like? But these are some good example questions for something like a phone screening.
And I can promise you, at the end of every single interview you will ever have, the last question that they ask you will be, do you have any other questions about the position or the company? And make sure you're prepared for that.
Please. And this is the one you should prep that the least for because it's so general. For the behavioral interview, behavioral and technical, you're going to want to prep a little more for those questions that you get to ask at the end. For your behavioral interview, these are going to be very situational questions. Tell me about a time when you had to blank, show leadership, make a tough decision. When you were a leader and you had to make a decision with 2 people. When you were in a decision-making process and you realized later on that you didn't make the right decision. Stuff like that. There is a method to these: STAR, situation, task, action, result. Do you want to talk through these, Stan?
Yeah, I mean, so this is really just a way to break down a problem because there's a couple of key things that they're looking for in these behavioral interviews are how do you handle failure, how do you break down a problem, and how well do you work on a team. I would say that sums up every single behavioral interview you will ever do. And so for one of those, how do you break down a problem? You can start with the situation, recognizing all of the background information that has led up to this, and then task, figure out what a possible solution could be, start workshopping that, and then action, actually go out and do the task that you came up with. And then the final one is the result, reflecting back on the action that you just take. What was the result of it? Did it meet expectations? Did it not meet expectations? What could you have done better? Moving forward, how are you going to adapt?
Yeah. So honestly, this is a big one where you'll just get better at these the more you do them. I think one of the best things you could do is practice with a friend, because they're very common questions and most of them are the same between interviews, but it's still a little like it kind of hits you the first time you do one of these, right? But the second or third time, you've already answered this question. So it's easier to do it. So do these with a friend. Ask Google or ChatGPT, what are some common behavioral interview questions? And have a friend do it with you and literally say it out loud. If you don't say it out loud, you're not going to have that muscle memory in practice. It sounds weird, but trust, it works, it helps. I already hit on these. Have leadership examples ready. Tough decision times. And again, have 3 to 4 research questions prepped at the end. For this type of interview, behavioral interview, and a technical interview, you will likely know your interviewer beforehand. Stalk them. Find their LinkedIn. Find their job. What do they do for work? Ask them questions about their job. They love to hear that. Please. It is the number one thing that will help you get past the interview. You could screw up so many things during the interview. If you ask them 3 to 4 good questions at the end, that's all they're going to remember, probably.
Yeah. Unless it was really bad.
Yeah, unless it was like
that will likely not happen. So, yeah. All right. So for the technical interview, nowadays for cybersecurity, technical interviews look very, very different depending on which company you go to. Some companies will give you leak code optimization problems. Some companies will give you just another example of how you break down a problem. Say we found out an incident happened. What are your next steps for remediation? So if you've taken endpoint security, that class is pretty much just solely dedicated to preparing for questions like that, and it is extremely useful. So to anybody that's like a first or second year, I would recommend trying to take that class as soon as possible, because it will prepare you very well for these questions. Because that's effectively where the landscape of cybersecurity technical interviews are moving. That's what both of us got when we were applying to Microsoft and Apple, respectively. And on top of that, you'll also probably have to walk through your resume, talk about personal projects. You're likely going to be matched up with somebody technical, so don't be afraid to go into detail and kind of show off what makes you interesting.
Yeah, this is the time where you really want to show off your nitty gritty. But I cannot stress enough. Don't lie. Do not BS these people, because these people know what they're talking about. These people know the technical details. If you try to BS your way through it, they're going to see right through you. And then they're questioning every other answer you gave before that, right? Be honest. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'll look into that. Where could I learn more about that? What resources would help me understand that better?
Yeah, and if you blatantly don't know how to answer a question, on our co-op panel yesterday, if anybody knows who Matt Diss is, I think he had a phenomenal response to a question that he didn't know anything about. He would say, and help me with this if I'm a little bit wrong. With my previous experience, I have not encountered a problem such as this, but if I were to use my previous experience and infer what I would do, this is how I would do it.
Absolutely.
So you're prefacing your response with saying that you're not completely sure, but it's also showing them how you break down a problem and apply your previous skills to something unseen.
Yeah. Think through your responses with these, especially for those broader questions like Dan mentioned. You're going to get some of those broader questions. A question I got in my interview is, you're responding to an incident. We were talking about CCDC. It was the first question. You're responding to an incident in CCDC. Walk me through the entire incident management lifecycle process. Super open-ended question. Right? I could have talked for the entire interview. I ended up talking for like 15 minutes. But they just want to see how you think. See the way your mind works, how it breaks down the problem. If you think of something later, do you go back and say, oh yeah, let's also do this because I just thought of that, right? Think through the whole problem and think out loud. Can't emphasize this enough. For prepping for these, you can't, question.
What
Endpoint security, it's CSEC 310.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for these, it's a little harder to prepare for these interviews because it's so wide of a variety of what you could see, right? You know, if you know you're going to get a leak code, that's a little different. Spend your life on leak code for the next couple days.
Very true.
Yeah. You know, do a little research on the interviewer ahead of time. Have those 3 to 4 questions ready. Have them questions about their job. Please do this. Please ask them questions about their job. They love it. But yeah, this is just tough to prepare for because there's so many different types of questions you could get. But you can be prepared to talk about every single thing on your resume.
And also at the end of the interview, again, you will be asked, do you have any questions about the company or the role? Have a couple of technical questions prepared, and that's going to be your time to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've covered this a lot. Ask questions and be prepared to ask questions.
All right, and so like for interviews, figure out what they're looking for. So do a little bit of research on your interviewer, see what they've posted on LinkedIn, what they're interested in, what they do for work, and all of that can help you kind of like build a profile so that you're as ready as possible heading into this interview. And just like some key soft skills that they're oftentimes can be asking for are up there. So like communication, collaboration, curiosity. How do you work with the team, and are you passionate about what you do?
Not getting fired now that you have the job. This is quite important. Employee handbook. This is going to contain a lot of information. Some of the more notable ones, especially for us cybersecurities, NDAs. You're going to want to make sure you read those NDAs. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. Is essentially what when the company tells you you can't talk about these things that you're going to experience with. Don't break your NDA. It's that simple.
Yeah, just take some time to read your NDA. That's probably the most important thing on this slide, and just like be an ethical person.
Yeah, a couple of these. Work attire. Ask your recruiter, right? Ask, hey, what is recommended attire for the company? I'd always recommend dress up a little nicer than that for day one. Would you agree? You're probably going to take a headshot or some sort of photo that's going to be your badge photo. Just dress a little nicer. It's understandable because it's your first day. And then once you see the vibe of the office, the vibe of what everyone else is wearing, then match that as best as you can. Don't spend thousands of dollars on a new wardrobe, but match it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, like for example, when I went to Microsoft, my first day, I wore like a button down. I think I had a tie on. I had slacks, nice shoes that I had just bought. And I, was a little bit overdressed. And then once I got a gauge for like how everybody else dressed there, then what I'm wearing right now is pretty much what I wore to work every day. So sometimes you'll get lucky and the dress code isn't all that strict. But you never want to be ill prepared for that first day, because if you show up underdressed, that's a really bad look. If you show up like overdressed, sometimes people will look at that quite positively. So just keep that in mind.
And people also are like, oh, it's little intense. They don't know no better. They're dressed up on the first day. They're little, they're all cute, So at my first job, I had a few kids wearing suit and ties on their first day, and that was they wore suit and tie for the first 2 days, and then they're like, okay, I'm not wearing a suit and tie anymore. It is what it is. Don't be afraid to dress up a little nicer on your first day.
Absolutely.
It's completely all right.
All right. So, work etiquette. Some key points here. Show up on time. Depending on what team you're on, this will vary, but make sure that you show up to work at least around when your manager does, and stay at work for at least 8 hours. And yeah, dress appropriately. So we just talked about like business casual, business formal. Then get enough sleep. So please sleep. People will recognize if you're like dozing off at work. That is a really bad look. So if you're interested in getting a return offer, please get enough sleep. Take care of yourself. And this is really what an internship is. It's an extended interview for full time. So treat it that way. And treat every day of work like it's a new day for an interview. And then also finally be appropriate. So I don't think I really have to lecture all of you on what's appropriate for like the workplace to talk about. But try to keep everything like lighthearted. Don't go too far past stuff that's not work related. Like it's appropriate to ask, what are you up to this weekend? But don't start talking about like everybody's life story.
And when people ask you, what did you do this weekend? If you didn't do anything, just lie, say something, right? It's that simple. Right? This is someone, my mom says all the time is working in HR. When someone asks you what you did this weekend, don't go into every detail, but say something.
Yeah,
20 seconds, right?
definitely
Hey,
say something.
I went to Yosemite this weekend.
Yeah,
Hey,
I went down to visit my friend at Apple, and we went hiking in Yosemite on Saturday.
or hey, I watched the NBA finals this weekend. I watched some football. It's as simple as that. But don't say, sat around all weekend.
Don't
Nobody
look
wants
lazy.
that. Yeah, nobody wants to have a conversation with that person anymore. Right?
Exactly. And basically, the key here is be likable and be somebody that they can, have lunch with, like James said.
I want to do this. I think my son's next.
All right, sure. Okay, so ask for feedback from your manager. Some companies will have like built-in feedback. Like I know at Microsoft and Travelers, I had a final sit down with my manager at the end of the internship to discuss what went well, what didn't go well, and next steps for possibly a returning internship or full-time. This feedback is very, very useful, and sometimes you can use it in like future job applications, talking about it in future interviews, but make sure to check with your manager beforehand. And if they really like you, ask them to if you can put them down as a reference, and so that other recruiters will reach out to them and see exactly how you did in a real work environment. And then finally, finish with an open line of communication. So connect with them on LinkedIn and continue that conversation past your internship.
Absolutely. And please don't sleep with another intern. Don't do it. Don't. All right. Yeah, not important. So you got the job, networking. Super important part of the job is networking. When I was in your seats my first year, I remember Olivia came on the student panel and did this presentation, and she talked about how while she was at Apple, she had a one-on-one every single day. And I'm like, what the heck? How'd you have a one-on-one or a coffee chat every single day? And then I did it this summer. Networking is so important, especially if you're in a big company. Meet these people, talk to these people. I had a guy in my org who worked on designing Apple Pay. Yeah, I had a couple coffee chats with him. Yeah, I asked him if he wanted to go on a corporate walk and talk about his job, right? Like you're going to work with some incredibly smart people, some people you can learn from, some people that might be able to help you out in your future, right? Some people that you might be interviewing with in 10, 15 years because you want to work on their team or something, right? Have coffee chats, build these connections, connect with people on LinkedIn, ask them about their role. A coffee chat should mostly be you as an intern asking a full-timer about their job, about their work, asking them questions about their experience. I saw you worked at blah, blah, blah for 10 to 15 years. Could you tell me what that was like? I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, use it as connections. So if you're, say, halfway through your internship and you're not entirely happy with where you are, but you're at a company that has a lot more opportunities, start talking with people that are in a lot of those other teams that you're interested in. And oftentimes they will remember you because you put in that extra effort to go talk to them and learn more about the positions on their team.
Yeah, I'm a big fan personally of not specifically a coffee chat, but the corporate walk. Just going for a walk around the building outside. It's as simple as that. We sit and stare at computers all day. So getting up, going out, walking around the building 2 or 3 times for 30 minutes, 10 out of 10. Nice chat. LinkedIn. Connect with people you work with. Connect with your team, your manager, your mentor. Send a short message, just to, hey, it was a pleasure working with you this summer. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, right? Be a human. It helps, just helps people remember you. They know you. Just overall, just do it. Social events. Not offered everywhere. If you're in person and you're at a bigger company, honestly, not even a bigger company. I had one my first year, and we only had 10 interns.
Yeah, like moderately sized companies too, even some small.
Yeah, as long as you have at least like 5 or 6 interns, they'll probably have some sort of in-person social event. It'll maybe be company-wide or just interns. Like for me, this summer was just interns. meet coworkers, meet people, talk, socialize, add people on LinkedIn. There will probably be an open bar at these. Do not get blackout drunk.
Yeah.
Do
And
not.
it will likely be, well, obviously it's going to be closed to if you're over 21, they will check. So if you're under 21, don't try it.
Don't.
It's not worth it. If you're over 21, sure, take advantage of it, but don't go crazy.
Do not go crazy. The full-timers will go crazy sometimes because they're allowed to. They're full-timers. We're interns. Be who you can afford to be. We're not at that stage yet, right? If you have a company baseball game, like we had a company baseball game, there were people who was a little interesting seeing with a few beers in them. None of us were drinking at all, even though a few of us were 21, right? We don't want the full-timers to see what we're like once we get intoxicated, right? That's just bad. Just don't do it. I would say don't drink at the social events if there are full-timers there. Like maybe one drink, right? Just don't do it. Don't, ruin your chances of getting a return offer. It's that simple.
Yep. All right. So after you complete this co-op experience, well, obviously this is one of the things that sets RIT apart, and start reflecting on what went well, what didn't go well, what do you like? Do you like the avenue of cybersecurity that you chose to go down? Do you not like it? Internships are really also, for you, they're a place for you to try out every avenue, every niche of cybersecurity, and figure out what you're most passionate, most interested about, because passion is what's going to carry you to those high places and get you deep into like the company or company structure. Also, learn more about the company culture. What do you like about it? What do you not like? And then remember all of these things when you're applying to your next co-op.
Yeah, and another thing, location is big. Me personally, I had never moved outside of Rochester my whole life. So like California, very different, right? Think about where you want to live for these internships. Do them in some cool locations, right? It's temporary. It's only 3 months or 6 if you do a double block, but it's only 3 months, right? Like if it's absolutely terrible, it's done after 3 months, right? If you absolutely hate it, me personally, I love doing all the things in California, but I could never live in California for longer than 3 months. I was like, get me the heck out of there, right? But hopefully they're sending me to Texas next.
Yeah.
And I'm going to love Texas.
Exactly.
But so that's something to think about, right? If you haven't experienced some of these big places where a lot of these cybersecurity companies before, if you haven't lived in DC before, do a co-op in DC. See if you like it, because there's a lot of us in DC. Austin, California, New York City. What are some other hubs? Am I missing any hubs? Seattle. Sorry. Yeah. Like Dan was at Seattle this summer and he absolutely loved it, right?
Yeah.
So experience these new places, these new climates, these new areas, new people, right? Experience it because it's temporary, right? And you can see if you absolutely love it and you want to go back full time.
And it is a big change to like move somewhere, a 6-hour plane ride away. But it is a very valuable experience to get in college, because if you love it and you have the opportunity to move out there full time, great. If you hated it, now you know without wasting an entire year of your life, hey, I don't want to be too far from home. I get very homesick. I miss my family. I miss my friends. So keep that in mind. It's a very valuable experience, and I think it's oftentimes understated with internships.
Agreed. Honestly, we could skip these. I don't think there's that.
Yeah.
All
right.
Good job. Profit. Any questions?
All right.
There should be some questions, hopefully. Please ask questions. If there's not any questions, I don't know if question.
So during the second career fair, second semester,
Yeah.
how I feel like it's not as many opportunities.
Yeah. So the question was, the spring career fair, oftentimes there's not as many opportunities. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I agree. There's probably not going to be as many companies. There's 230 at this one. There'll probably be 150. I feel like, Liz, you probably have better numbers than me.
Yeah.
120 to 150. Yeah, because it's such a short time period. There's still plenty of companies. Honestly, it might even be better because you're actually going to be able to talk to all the companies you want to talk to, right? Like here, you're not going to be able to talk to all the companies you want to talk to at the fall career fair. Spring, like you might be able to get away with only going for 5 out of the 6 hours and still being able to talk to the 10 companies that are hiring for cyber. But yeah, there's going to be less. That doesn't necessarily make it worse. Just less volume,
Yeah, less volume, and also they're going to be more skewed to. So the fall one is going to be more skewed towards like full-time and summer employment. The spring one is going to be more skewed towards like semester long co-ops. And so if you're interested in doing a semester long co-op, it is a phenomenal experience to go to that.
Yeah, and they might even be hiring, if you see any of the 3-letter agencies there in the spring, they're hiring for the next summer. They're like this spring, so spring 26, they'll be hiring for summer 27. So that's something to think about. Some companies might be as well, probably not. Most private companies do like a year-long window. The longest I see is like JP Morgan Chase.
Yeah, the longest
at the beginning
ones.
of summer.
Yeah, the longest ones I'll see are like those big finance companies at the beginning of every summer.
Yeah,
but big tech is generally like June to August is when applications are open, and then like everything else is all the way up until pretty much like December, sometimes even January for a lot of those.
Yeah, so it is smaller, but I still recommend going. Yeah, John.
As a first year going to career fair, how can my objectives or expectations differ from typical I'm trying to get a job?
Yeah, so the question was, as a first year, how should my objective or expectations differ compared to a second year? I'm just going to put this as bluntly as possible. Don't expect to come out with an interview or a job, right? Just put it simply as that. Have 0 expectations. The only expectation I would recommend is experience for yourself. You might get an interview. I happened to get an interview, not an interview today, but they contacted me a month later. It was Excelis, right? You might get an interview, but go in with 0 expectations. Anything better than that is a win. And that's simply I think the simplest way to put it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're stand out, oftentimes companies will remember you the next cycle. And if they tell you to, we're not looking for first years right now, but definitely come back and talk to us, they might remember you. So it's definitely worth going.
Absolutely. That was something someone asked a question about that in co-op panel yesterday. Follow up with these people. Build a connection with these people. I mentioned SRA. The recruiters know me by first name. Same thing with Excelis, Rochester Regional. These local companies, right? They're here all the time. They set up tables outside. They sponsor the club. They're at the career fair. If you go as a first year, by the time you're a third year, that's pretty much a guaranteed internship. Like, I mean, I don't want to say that like 100%, but like, as long as you know what you're doing, right? I had an interview with Excelis last year, and I had, after my first year, I'd applied with them, emailed as a follow-up after I didn't get the job saying thank you, connected with him on LinkedIn. It happens that his like brother's cousin is my neighbor or something, crazy connection. But like then I ended up interviewing with them the next year, and I got the job offer the day after my interview, right? So you can see how like it does help, it does matter. So a lot of it is also those connections you're going to build, especially with the local companies. Know what the local companies are: Rochester Regional, Excelis, SRA. What other ones am I missing, Liz? ICR, yeah, they're Syracuse, but still local. What's the Paychex? Yeah, Paychex, M&T Bank, Delaware North. Those Western New York companies are big with RIT. Yeah, Max works at Delaware North. Yeah, M&T, I forgot they're at. And they're also a sponsor of the club.
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
BC, yeah, that's Excelis.
Oh, right.
So yeah.
All right.
These slides, yes, they will be posted. Yeah, Caroline.
If you apply to the company online for your career, how would you recommend adjusting your introduction?
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Great question. The question was, if you applied to a company online before the career fair, how would you adjust your questions and talking to them? I would go pretty similarly, because I would recommend that you should apply online beforehand, right? I would recommend that you apply to all of these jobs that are posted online. And instead of saying, I've seen that you posted online, when I'm talking to Dan, hey, would you like to take a look at my resume?
Yeah, let's see it.
So I'm involved in blah, 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 blah. I do blah, 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 blah. I've applied to this job you've posted online, and I'm really interested in it. Could you tell me more, right? It's just, past tense versus future tense, right?
Changing a little bit of that wording with saying that you have already applied versus you saw that they were online.
Yeah, but 100% you should apply to these jobs before you go to the career fair. So thank you for that question, actually.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I hope that answered the question. Yeah, all right,
Cool. Any other questions? All right.
Advice, don't fall into the trap of we're all competing for the same jobs. I promise you, there may be folks who are interviewing with that you have folks in your classes that are also interviewing for these jobs. That's totally fair. Use each other's resources. You are not each other's enemies. You are each other's allies. In this 4 years, when you're going to be gone, this alumni network is smaller than you think. These are going to be the connections that you know of when you are gone in the long term. Sorry. And so I'm just encouraging y'all, like, right now it may seem like it's competitive, we're each other's enemies, you versus me, and it may feel that way. Don't fall into the trap, it's very tempting. Something that works for you may not work for someone else, and vice versa. Send each other job postings, if you know so-and-so is looking for this, that's not really my realm. Use each other as resources, not as enemies.
Yeah, and the key point that there for the stream is that Liz just said we're all on the same team. We're all just trying to get jobs, and so use each other as resources. And if you find like a job that's not for you, but you have a friend that's very interested in it, give it to them, and don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, we're all applying to the same job. They're my enemy.
Can't restate that, stress that enough. My second year, me, Danny Nichols, and Matt Sisko had a shared drive or a shared file where we kept track of all the positions we applied to with the link to the job posting in it. Right? Do something like that with your friends. Right? 10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we move on to some fun little demos for you guys to practice and get ready for career fair?
Oh yeah. All right. Let's get started. So, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Where is? I don't think so. Oh, and here's Owen.
All right, so demos there are a little bit different. They're not technical this week. They will be related to career fair. We are going to have, I think, 3 different stations set up. So we're going to have mock interviews. So this would be like after you've already been invited to an interview, you're sitting down with a person talking one-on-one. We'll have a couple people running that. We're going to have some people reviewing resumes. You can bring it up on your computer, bring your resume. They'll go over with you, give you some advice, what to fix, what to change, what to add. And then we're going to have also some people taking like elevator pitches. So they'd be like the people you walk up to at career fair. You introduce yourself, give them a little bit of information about yourself, the elevator pitch, and then they'll talk to you like you would at career fair. So that'll be like a 5-minute thing. Each of these shouldn't be more than like 5, maybe 10 minutes if it goes well at maximum. And then we'll try to get through as many people as we can. The flags, there's 4 challenges in the thing. You don't have to do the flags if you're not doing them, but if you want to, you put the flags in. They'll just give them to you at the end of whatever thing you do. All right, so we'll give us a couple minutes to get that set up, and then we'll start that. I think you on the elevator pitches, and Dan's doing resume. The team's doing I'm just gonna here. Okay. Also, if you're looking for help with last week's demos, I can help you with that.
Reminder, you want that 60-second, what's that called? Is it working? Alright, whatever. It's not working.
Uh, but hey, you have to show sign-ins. If you don't show me a sign-in, I'm taking $20 off you at the door.
No, it's the demos. We're doing stock interviews. Or like you mock interviews with someone.
Yeah. So we're gonna be here. We also do jobs that you do. So you want to sit down and look. So, so I don't know. Of course not. I know someone that. So, real simple. I worked on a project. I have a member who is really like, we want to get in the background. Something about like, I might around it, how your team work is down to really do it. What are you doing? I have to do all that stuff. Where it's not, I just don't want to something like that. Great to reflect it. Why am I not? But I think it's back to personality. Yeah. Yeah. Try to bring in the idea of what mine is all like so mine's a little bit I understand the state where like back to my first one where my ability is my intelligence position and then I also but that I go into like if you look at it, people will read like one there, one there, and down the line. So they actually don't think there's number three, how to be efficient, I can help with student orientation, but it tells the like higher interest and then all the skills, which are just so think about what but I would focus a lot for these, I would say I thought worked on that in a class as considered SBO against another class. And then also you notice like alleyway green light is always
I think that it's only you two presenting, so I don't think James is gonna take that long either. So just like go as long as you need. Don't feel rushed. Yeah. Get this out of my face. Best that we take.
I sent the link. What the hell?
What's this called? Security niche. Did I get the Zoom thing working last time? So that it like worked properly when I showed my screen?
Yeah, you did. I can't remember how though.
Yeah, hopefully we'll figure it out again.
I mean, we're occupied right now. So
Hold on. No, I'm just
we're
keep rolling. How do I keep full screen?
I forgot that's on. The fuck? How do you turn this off?
Is Lucas here?
No. Yes.
My bad. Hold on. My bad. Oh wait, now it's full screen. Oh, it's because I need the speaker notes. Yeah, sorry. Are you sharing your screen correctly? Oh no. Control Shift F. There you go.
Press F to pay respect.
F to pay respect, please. Where's Zoom? Oh, it's also in that browser. Hold on. That means you have to just like Control Shift F. Get the other browser out of here, please.
You see your notes?
Yes, I can see my notes. Let me get that on
Start recording. And transition. Hey.
Yeah.
We are ready.
Time. It's that time, guys. Time for your favorite time of the meeting. That's right. Research. All right. We'll start in just a second once everyone's paying attention. Thank you. All right, guys. As usual, if any of you are interested in presenting and earning some epic prizes, make sure to sign up. Presentations.ritsec.club. I'll reach out to you. We can find a time that works. Same with blogging. A bunch of blog posts were actually just posted by Oleg and Tanush, so check them out. They're on CVEs and some other things, so I'd recommend checking out the blog. Now some announcements. Please sign in if you haven't already. And join the Discord. I'm sure you've all done all of these things. Check the calendar, calendar.ritsec.club. Join the mailing list if you haven't. And, of course, follow our social medias. And obviously, please clap it up for the sponsors. Thank you. If you did a co-op this summer, make sure to fill this form out so we can get some info on it for our sponsors. Also, there will be a mentorship social event today from 4 to 5 p.m. Ask Adam if you have any questions. There will also be blue team workshops on those dates listed in preparation for RITSEC upcoming.
Now, onto some cybersecurity news. I'm going to be talking about Red Hat with a recent GitLab breach, and also Microsoft auto-pushing some 365 apps, just because I thought that was stupid and made me a little angry. So to get into it, Red Hat had a recent GitLab breach by this group called the Crimson Collective, which sounds kind of cringe. They announced it on Telegram. I have some pictures from their Telegram. And essentially, they stole 570-ish gigabytes of data from 28,000 private repos. So that included stuff like, private keys, private information, things that gave them access to things they weren't supposed to have. Apparently, like 800-ish customers were affected. And another thing that they got access to was a bunch of CERs, which are customer engagement reports. So that's like penetration info, testing, like info on that stuff. So definitely not something that they want getting out there in the public. Red Hat said like it wasn't a major issue or anything, though from the Telegram you can see from the Crimson Collective, they were going on about all the info that they got and how they're gonna put it out there. They also talked about how they reached out to Red Hat saying they found this info, and Red Hat kind of just like responded with a generic email to them. So they ended up leaking all that information. Yeah, Red Hat said that they started remediation immediately after it was announced. And the attackers, they said they contacted with an extortion demand, but they only got a generic thing. And there were a lot of victims affected, like IBM. I think the U.S. Navy or something also was affected. So a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of data leaked. Additionally, Microsoft is now saying they will auto push 365 companion apps. This isn't like super cybersecurity, but this just makes me angry that Microsoft will be pushing out all these random apps to Windows 11, whether you want them or not. So, this is another reason why you should switch over to Linux or something else that's like more fun. Apparently the rollout will begin in like October, so soon, ending December 25. This includes apps like the People one, File Search, and Calendar. I don't know. I've never even heard of any of these before. I don't know what like any of that is. There's some basic stuff like they're going to be enabled on startup. You can change that, whatever. But it's still kind of annoying that like Windows is just pushing this stuff to whether you want it or not. There's some of my sources, and without further ado, getting into the research, we have Ben. I don't think your last name is Sipple, is it? Is it? I thought it was Tipple for some reason. Okay, I guess that's fine. Ben Sipple on his a ThreatSys analysis tool, and James Gill with Blue Bubbles. Let me send you the link. Yeah. What's that?
Hello. Hi, so this is my presentation on I guess what I'm going to be calling a blue team tool. I'm just naming it ThreatSys database integration. So this is a scalable blue team solution, aka also this presentation on how you build your web app for any first and second years out there who want to get a project on their resume. So let's get into it.
Here's the delay.
There we go. So this is the agenda. I guess I should have gotten this slide, but this is kind of the flow for today. First, a little bit about myself. My name is Ben. I'm in 5th year. I completed my undergrad in computer science, and then now I'm on my cybersecurity master's. I've done 3 software engineering co-op blocks, 1 as a security engineer. I'm a retired varsity swimmer. I'm on now. I like going to the gym. Recently got into golf last summer. Now I'm not very good. I love hiking. This picture on this one. Okay. Picture in the top right is Blue Lakes, Colorado, which is probably my favorite hike. It's absolutely beautiful. Then right here is the La Fortuna Forest in Costa Rica. It was a super cool trip that I went on with my friends. Also a big fan of cats, as you will see in the presentation. I was throwing this together and I realized how boring it might actually be. So I thought, how would I like the presentation to be? And there's some cats in it. So I think cats are really going to be on pure perk. And a huge fan of house music, dad rock, a lot of different genres of music. So I'll talk about a little bit about my motivation for this project. First of all, job search. Didn't want to end up at McDonald's or anything. So this is also a tip for any first and second years trying to get their first co-op or looking at positions that they're interested in. So look at first of all, find job descriptions and job positions that you're interested in, and look at the basic qualifications or requirements that they're asking for, and become the candidate that they're asking for. So if they're asking for someone who's proficient in Excel, you know I'm proficient in Excel, right? So if they're looking for somebody with experience with X, Y, and Z technology, go off, do a project in that technology. They will probably love that. I found inspiration through, it's pretty much my implementation of the VirusTotal tool, which is pretty nifty as a tool. It's used in industry a lot. It's used by security professionals around the world. Basically, you can query any kind of domain or URL and see if it's reported as malicious or not. I also wanted to learn some new technologies. So Python was one of the requirements that I saw a lot in job positions I was looking at, as far as Angular, JavaScript, and I also saw Docker containerization a lot, and I had never worked with that before. And also everything else that I plan on getting to by now, but I haven't. And then lastly, job search. Didn't want to bring that up. So quick note on vibe coding. This is probably what I would call my first vibe coded project. I utilized a lot of these LLMs as far as learning the new technologies, so it's really useful in getting started, but I would say use with caution, right? I wouldn't take code from the LLM, paste it straight into my project, and then call myself a developer. Well, first of all, if you do that, you're probably going to end up with a lot of errors. It's pretty good if you have an assignment or a project and only a few hundred lines of code, but as soon as you get more complex, right? I have a backend working with a front end, working with a database, right? If you just copy and paste a whole lot of code, you're going to end up with errors and you have no idea where to start. So main thing is understand everything you're putting into the project. Don't just blindly copy paste. And then I still think it's a pretty good tool for at least entering in a new technology that you're not unfamiliar with. Otherwise, you can also look at GitHub for similar projects. If you're looking at a new technology, you don't know how to get started, look up those projects, see how they structured their code base, and then kind of go off there. That's kind of what I did for a lot of Fast API. So this is me doing my research. This is kind of the tool overview. So this is my search page. It greets you with a little message. What we want to find today. You can also look at organizations, users, and IOCs, which are kind of like my main entities of the program. Fast API, the Python server that I implemented, also has a nifty docs page. So this is all my API endpoints that you were able to query directly instead of having to use the front end to interact with it or just send a curl request. It's my architecture overview. So the user in their browser interacts with the front end with the backend Fast API, and that in my senior application, I'll query the database directly. So This is kind of what I put here: Angular, Fast API, Postgres, all interact with each other, and Docker Compose kind of orchestrates it all. So my services are backend, front-end, database. It's a nice little diagram that I put together to show the Docker Compose network, and it kind of handles all of that communication in between containers there. This is the ER diagram. So depending on how old you are, you may or may not have seen one of these already. The first part of this is how I modeled my IOCs. So it's my primary IOCs table. You have ID, what type it is, value, and a whole lot of other metadata. So I tried my best to normalize out a lot of information so I wouldn't have a lot of repetition. Once you take your database class, you'll figure out what database normalization is. It's actually pretty useful. Then you have relationships like how an IOC might relate to another IOC. So you have a domain or a URL that leads to a domain, that would be a relationship. And then I also have, so some of those IOC types here, I have different like file hashes. You have MD1, MD5, SHA-1, SHA-6, SHA-512, a whole lot of different types of hashes that I was able to account for. And then I have users have a form to organizations, users also have roles, and so simple with implement role-based access control to my application. So this is kind of an overview of my backend. So the Fast API entry point was named that by, and then the structure that I found through looking at best practices in projects, where so models contains my ORM entities, schemas for the PyDataTech validation, services which kind of directly handle the database queries, routers which are separated from services. I'll get into that in a second. And then utils like validators for hash values and some helpers that I found to be helpful. I also implemented JSON Web Token authentication and then some centralized exception handling. So I'm controlling what error codes get returned to the user. So before working with a Python server application that I've never made before, I had no idea that you should separate out services and routers. So the routers are your actual API endpoints that you define. But that shouldn't actually interact with your database, or it can, but good design means that your services are actually doing that. So you have a dependency from your services to the API endpoints. And so your schemas, which is how you actually validate data, plays a huge part in actually validating any data that comes into your server. So that plays a huge role in actually making sure that the right data comes into your API endpoints. And you can define those with your schemas. And your models are kind of how you model your entities in the Python code. So I have tables in my database that have, different columns. And so this is how they are modeled in Python. It does all that kind of validation. So my front end, like I mentioned, is a Angular single page application with modular components. It has a login page for IOCs, a page for users, a page for organizations. And I implemented guards for role-based access control. So users who are not an admin, for example, should not be able to view all the users in the application. We also have interceptors, which handle your authentication tokens. So how you actually authenticate to the Python server and how it handles errors. And I can show you guys that later. The services in my front end are actually what integrate with the backend APIs. So that's where I defined all the API endpoints, which gets the data from my server and database. I'm not really a front end guy, so it looks pretty bad. It took me a lot longer than I thought it would to kind of design this all, just because of Angular. I don't really like JavaScript, but I saw it in a lot of job descriptions, so that's why I had to get some experience. But if anybody has any tips, thoughts, suggestions, etc., I'd be really happy to hear about that. And then finally, just a little bit about my database and performance. So I use Postgres to have user tables, role tables, organization tables, IOC tables, and then some relationship tables that kind of model like what relationships I want to have in between entities. I created a Cedar application to kind of initialize some test data. I can show you guys that later too in a demo. It just kind of handles what data I want to have in there and how that works together with foreign keys and stuff like that. And then, like I mentioned before, Docker Compose kind of orchestrates this all. I made sure to have volumes for database persistence. So each time I spin up a container, I don't want to seed the database again. If I want to seed it with initial test data one time, that'd be great, and then just initialize that volume each time for persistence. And then also Docker Compose kind of had its own networking for serverless communication, which is really nice. In containerization, as far as best practices go, I'm really not sure. I'm not the expert. I don't really know anything about security. Just kidding. And then what's the deal with environment files? I'm not sure. I read a lot of different things about it. Like, takes a secret out of code, yeah, but then it says like it's also available if they are able to get access to your container. So not really sure there. If anyone else has any thoughts about that, I'd love to hear it. This is kind of what my backend container Docker file looks like. The main thing here that I made sure to add was it'll show up. Okay, yeah. So the main thing here is that I want to run this server under a different user. So I'll run through add threadsys, add default threadsys, and then run these commands as threadsys. So if my container ever gets compromised, nobody's able to run as root and just go wild. Front-end container. A few things to note here is that I used unprivileged execution. So it uses Nginx unprivileged base image, so there's always execution there. Minimal logging surface, so the access logs are disabled. Error logs are directed to standard error. And then we have this single page application routing enforcement. So this try files prevents bypassing Angular routing logic, which kind of helps make sure that the user doesn't try to bypass my routing at all. And then I use an Nginx reverse proxy, which I actually got from the Docker website, which had a lot of resources for how to get started with Docker files there. So services, like I mentioned, I have Postgres, the database with persistent storage, initialization script, health check, port 5432, which is the Postgres port. My Cedar application, which seeds Postgres, runs after the database is ready. My backend API service, it depends on a healthy Postgres, so that runs on port 8000. And then my front end, which is my client application, it depends on the backend and it runs on port 8080. And then the volumes are for data persistence with Postgres. And then now we can get a demo time, which always works out really well. So let's see. So we'll go to, should be running already. This is what you're met with when you first navigate to the application. So you get a little message saying, what would you like to find today? Search for IOCs here. I'm going to go ahead and log in to show you what the dashboard might look like for an authenticated user. And for me, I'm going to be an admin, so I'll be able to see all my users here. Great, log into my dashboard. I can see 11 users. We got Tiger Woods, we got all the users in my application. That's really cool. Shout out to Bills and Tiger Woods. As far as my organization go, Buffalo Bills are really good about civilians and IOCs. Also, the Broncos are really good. Some good organizations we see up here that are customers in my app. But then what if we want to search an IOC? We can query here. So let's say like, I actually have no idea what IOCs that it used randomly. So that is a good use case for my documentation page, which I'll pull up in a second if the lag stops. So this is the Fast API documentation that I referenced earlier. Because of the JSON Web Token authentication, I do have to authorize before I'm able to use any of these endpoints. So that same login data that I used before, I'll change that. And it tells me that I have a authorization, and then this gives me the token that I need to send with my queries. So just for an example, if I want to see all the IOCs that I have in my app, I will go ahead and try it out, execute, and we see some just example IOCs here. So let's see. This looks like an IPv6 address, so I'll go ahead and copy this and see if my app comes up with it. I'm looking for this address because I think it's malicious. Oh, look, we have a hit. IPv6 address. It's got TLP level white, which is a traffic level protocol. Currently active. It was submitted by the Buffalo Bills. It was last seen October 3rd at 6:19 p.m. Which that is a totally date in the future. Nice. And we can see we can do other filtering with this app too. So we can say, I want IPs, I want domains, I want URLs, other stuff like that. You can look for some more sensitive data, which is something that actually chat suggested for that. So that was a pretty cool feature to add. We can see either say active or inactive, where the source organization came from, and maybe this date it was last seen or when it was created, which is a good amount of filtering, I think, for a tool like this. Let's see if there's like a .com domain. Yeah. So we have yang.com and flags Jenkins as malicious. That's pretty bad. That's just an example URL that my seeder came up with. Just all random there. But yeah, just kind of show you how this search works. So we have 15 IOCs according to my dashboard. You can query them all. You know, if you're a security analyst at a company, you can upload something that you noticed as a problem, and then either users in your organization will be able to see that, or if you have some kind of sharing between you and another organization. So say you're a bank and you want to share indicators of compromise with another bank, you're able to have that kind of communication there, which is, I think, a really useful thing. And that's pretty much it for my demo. So future plans, I didn't really get a lot done with this as I thought I might at this point, but that's just because school started. It's been kicking my ass. And unfortunately, I'm not addicted to the grind. I'm addicted to the overall just taking it easy. But where might I go in the future when I start up with this again? Because this is more of a proof of concept than anything. I want distributed IOC storage, so I want to utilize some NoSQL and integrate HBase for scalable IOC content storage. So the main difference between SQL and NoSQL is that NoSQL is very optimized for reads and writes, or reads and writes, whereas SQL is kind of will maintain the relationships between all your entities. Which if you need that, then that's really where you can go for that. And also, so like I said, maintain some data in Postgres, but throw a lot of it into HBase. I want real-time distribution, so I want to utilize either Kafka or Redis streams for publishing new IOCs, and then utilize some WebSockets for live updates in the user interface. I want some monitoring analytics. So the elk stack is a lot. I saw that in a lot of job positions, so I really wanted to try to either put in some Elasticsearch or Grafana. Testing and scalability. So is Fast API fast? I don't know how well it scales, but I definitely do want to test that at some point. And then as far as CI/CD goes, and deploying it, you know, right now it's just, hey, dude, check out my app at localhost 8080. That doesn't mean anything to you guys. I want to actually get this deployed and orchestrated with a good pipeline going. Use automated pipelines, and I also want to get some experience with Kubernetes. Just haven't gotten to that yet. And then just step 6, profit. Step 7, UI UX work. Because I do not like working in Angular JavaScript. Here's some links that I chose to put in. So that's my GitHub. There's Fast API practices that I talked about. Fast API documentation is really helpful. Angular documentation is really helpful. And then this is where I went with all the buttons about Docker. And I got some of those example Docker files and best practices there. So thank you. If anybody have any questions or comments about my talk? Thank you.
You're gonna store your keys. Where will you store them?
Store my keys.
Yeah. That's right. A RITSEC lanyard. Nice job.
Sorry. All right. I'm going to be giving the next research presentation here. Basically, this was something that I looked into and researched and did for a long time back in high school. Apple's iMessage protocol, right? Yeah, I'm going to give an overview, I guess, of basically the timeline of things to give you some perspective, and then maybe I'll give like an overview of how iMessage works, because I think that's really interesting. But let's see. There we go. Okay. So here's like the start of the timeline. I started working on this project like back in 2023 in April. Basically, I'd done some work with Apple stuff a little bit before that, but I was interested in how push notifications worked. And so I started a project that was sort of acting as an Apple device, like an iPhone, to receive push notifications, sort of standalone without a real Apple device. Weirdly, a guy from text.com, he'll become relevant later, reached out already 14 days after I started that project. Not really sure how he found that out because it was not really workable yet. It could just do push notifications. By July, I had it doing phone numbers, which was really cool. Basically, a lot of projects at the time for iMessage used Macs. And obviously, if you're using a Mac only to do iMessage, it shows up as an email address. And that's not really like ideal for a lot of people, right? That you share your phone number and you want it to automatically turn blue into iMessage. I guess I should have. I'm just sort of assuming everybody already knows what iMessage is here. I guess I should probably mention that. But yeah, so I had a project with PyPush. You could link basically a SIM card to your Apple ID, and it would show up as a phone number instead of an email address. And then at the end of July, I sent an iMessage for the first time from just a Python script, nothing else, no real Apple device. This was on like, a Linux computer. You can see like that CLI at the top. It was literally just like, it just looked like that. You just typed your, like who you're sending it to and an iMessage and it showed up as a bullet bubble for them. So that was really cool. August 5th, I reached out to Eric Mijakovsky, who is, or was the CEO at Beeper. And I sold it to them on August 11th, right? But gonna maybe dive into this in a bit more detail, I guess. That's just sort of a timeline. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, for context, I still work for Beeper now as a contractor, but we don't really do iMessage anymore for reasons that I guess I'll cover on the next slide. Okay, so then a lot of things happened like really fast. So I sold it to them on August 11th. Some really great engineers over at Beeper started rewriting my Python script into Go. And then I started working for them as a contractor in September. During that time, there was a lot of excitement in sort of the messaging field at that time in late 2023. There was this app called Sunbird, which did like a similar thing of iMessage on Android, but like they were bad at security, like appallingly bad. Apparently they sent their messages sort of plain text through a Firebase database, and so you could like read other people's messages because they didn't configure Firebase correctly. So that was bad. And then a company called Nothing like
sort of rebranded it, made it Nothing Chats before they knew about the security vulnerability. So then there were like 2 apps that basically imploded at the same time. But anyway, at that time, we were preparing to launch Beeper Mini. And Beeper Mini was basically taking that iMessage project and turning it into a standalone app for iMessage on Android, right? It looked sort of like this. It was literally, you could send blue bubbles on Android with your phone number. That was really cool. And we were working on that app. Also during that time, I flew out to San Francisco, or they flew me out to San Francisco, and it was in like a lot of news articles at the time, right? There was a lot of interest around like antitrust stuff, right? I mean, I know recently Apple has been like with the EU and stuff with antitrust getting in trouble, I guess. That there was a lot of interest in that at the time. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of cool things happened there. I don't really know where I was going with that. Basically, during this presentation, I don't know if I'm not explaining something well. Could someone like give me some feedback and ask me some questions here, because like I'm obviously there's a lot of detail here, and I'm not really sure what people are interested in or care about. So does anyone? I don't know.
What were the interviews like?
I was kind of bad at them, but I was a high schooler, so I don't know that anybody really expected much. But it was Eric, the CEO there, did a lot of interviewing as well, and he sort of spun the story into like what he was trying to accomplish, right, with the company's app, right? Yeah, that's what I'll say about that. I mean,
are you gonna get into Beeper Mini more?
Yeah.
I forgot the timeline of how it goes from launching on December 8th to less than.
Okay, so basically the timeline of there, I should have made a slide just about this, but basically there were 2 factors that were sort of going bad here. One is Apple does not like this very much at all. And so they start changing things on their back end. And so we're like, there were several days we spent like 12 hours straight or something because Apple just kept changing things. In fact, it was pretty cool because we had like sort of analytics of the app. And so we could see like our app made like a constant connection to Apple servers for push notifications, which I might get into the architecture of how iMessage works later, but basically it needs a constant connection, right, to know to a service called APNS, right? You might have heard of that from the iOS development concept. We're basically the sort of the opposite side of that server, the side that's receiving the messages rather than the what in normal iOS development you're sending notifications, right? But anyway, we could see when Apple rolled out changes because the long-lived connections, like the TCP connections, would drop for a second in different regions of the world as they slowly rolled out this change. And that was really cool, but also really scary whenever they did that, because usually it meant something was about to break badly. And basically the other conflicting factor was the fact that they were in talks. A lot of this seems to have been sort of a cynical view of it in the past, is they were trying to get their name out there because they were in talks to get acquired by a larger company, Automatic. And so they wanted to, look really cool right before they get acquired. It's normal-ish startup thing to do. And so once Automatic, like that was sort of becoming finalized, the Automatic decided they didn't really want to fight with Apple that much. And so they sort of said, yeah, maybe don't do that. But, it was really cool for several weeks. You could just install the app. You could send iMessages from Android. It was great, but didn't last very long.
I'm noticing there are some ads that were released along with Beeper. I'm sure those are like not your own app, right?
No, those are unrelated, and they're using a different sort of system entirely. They're using Max. They were literally just like puppeting Max, which was A, not very scalable, but I guess that's a them problem. But B, they didn't do their security very well. And I mean, yeah. In fact, some people from Beeper actually wrote like a security like analysis and blog post, which is how a lot of those things got found. And they took the app down after they got in trouble for that. Yeah. But so basically, I'm just gonna skip ahead because I think the way iMessage works is kind of interesting.
But like, here's how like normal like sort of app notifications work. Like you get a notification from like an app on your phone, like Facebook or whatever, right? How does that happen? Basically, there's a thing called the APNS courier, the Apple Push Notification Service courier, and it's sort of this really cool global network of servers that Apple has, right? And sort of the third-party app servers just send like a normal HTTP API request there, and it goes and delivers a notification to your phone. And it uses two sort of components to make sure those get delivered the right place. One is topics, which are just a unique identifier, usually in reverse DNS for your app, like, com.facebook.messenger or whatever. And the other is a push token, and that uniquely identifies the device. For third-party apps, they are scoped to the app, so you can't use a push token from, say, Facebook Messenger to receive WhatsApp or send WhatsApp notifications. For privacy reasons, they're sort of randomized. But for iMessage and native things, they are not. It's a unique identifier for your device. Like, there's just one for your device. Well, sort of. This is sort of how our setup process for that goes. As we're pretending to be an iPhone here, we send a connect request with a push certificate, and we get a connect response with that unique push token. This is over a custom TCP-based protocol that I had to reverse engineer, but it's it's like a custom binary pack protocol. And there's this other server called Albert that's for activation, like iPhone activation, basically. But we get a certificate from them to prove we're a real device. But the really funny thing we found out back then is for some reason, Apple's Windows apps, like iTunes for Windows, use this push notification service as well. And when they registered with Albert, they had a hack. They just put literally Windows serial as the serial number. And the server was hard-coded to accept that serial number always. So we did that for a while. Eventually, they caught on to this. And if the serial number Windows serial had been used, it set a flag on that push token and wouldn't let it be used for iMessage specifically. This, like, there's hacks on top of hacks in this system.
So when that happened, did like everything just like break? Like, what did you guys do?
Well, we switched to registering as a Mac, and then we just like got a bunch of Mac serial numbers and shoved them in the code, and it was fine. By the end, there were a lot of changes that would have made this really hard. So another one of the changes they made is we were registering phone numbers to the account, right? Because that was like much easier than requiring people to have an Apple ID. If you're registering with a phone number, you don't have to already have an Apple ID. And B, most people expect that when you're using iMessage, you're using a phone number, not an email address. That's just more convenient. But Apple basically set a bunch of flags on top that said if you're registering with a Mac serial number or you're claiming to be a Mac, you're not allowed to register phone numbers, because obviously real Macs do not register phone numbers because they don't have SIM cards. So that would be ridiculous, and so they blocked that from happening. We'll get into this later, but basically the only workaround for that is as of right now, is to actually have real iPhones, but they can be old iPhones. Like you can get like iPhone SE first generations for like $25 a pop and just use them. But the problem is the activation process for iPhones is a lot more complicated. It's not just like sending a static serial number. It's like this whole challenge response process with like the secure enclave on the device, specifically because they're trying to prevent people from doing activation lock bypasses. And this gets dragged into that mess. So yeah, it's probably good that we sort of stopped doing it when we did, because it might have been impossible to continue phone numbers. We could have done with email addresses still, but yes.
I think of the EU like suits go through, and of course like so you see stuff papers that are going to go back and read.
So I'm kind of annoyed with how things have been going recently. This is also about the time when RCS was like being hyped up and coming out. And really my problem with RCS is that it's a carrier-based thing. It's not an internet-based protocol, right? It's a carrier-based protocol. And you have to explicitly like basically peer with every carrier that you want your messages to be delivered to. And so the carriers have like their own, like, they're all paired with each other. But if you want to say, send RCS messages, you have to have a physical SIM card and talk to an actual carrier, or get one of them to be nice to you and peer with you, which is never going to happen. So even though it's technically an open standard, it's not really. And I feel like this has been misrepresented a lot. I really would have preferred something like iMessage became a standard because it's an internet-based protocol. SIM cards and phone numbers are not really involved at all except tangentially. Like you have to prove you own the SIM card. Basically, it's a challenge and response SMS text actually that Apple's servers will send you a text and then it actually hides it from you on the iPhone. And then your iPhone takes that SMS text and like hands it back to the server to prove you own that phone number. When we were implementing this in Android, there was a whole bunch of the SMS API on Android is kind of bad because SMS is kind of a bad protocol. And so it was really hard. It didn't work with all carriers because some of them like mangled it in transmission. And on a lot of Android devices, the text, even though it was supposed to be hidden, would show up. And so people were really confused. Why is there like this encoded text message from a random number that shows up? That was kind of a mess. But where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So anyway, the way the EU seems to be going is they want everybody to use RCS, I guess. That's what I've been getting. So I don't know if there's really any hope for iMessage, like interoperability with iMessage officially. It's kind of unfortunate. Also, Apple really likes being maliciously compliant with the EU stuff. I don't know if you've seen the stuff with like the third-party app stores, but like it still has to go through basically app review, even though it's a third-party app store, which is like ridiculous. But that's besides the point. Why would you say that app review for a third-party app store? Because I've got a bunch of friends who have gotten them denied because it's something Apple didn't want them to do, even though it's totally legal and should have been allowed. Like that Apple's basically using their, sort of the monopoly position they've established to prevent people from competing in things they don't want them to compete. Are you saying that it shouldn't be allowed to publish the App Store? No, this is with third-party app stores. It shouldn't be allowed to publish the App Store shouldn't be able to. There's a difference. Yes. Like which one? Well, Apple, if it's not notarized, it can't get published to any app store. It seems kind of ridiculous to me that Apple has complete control over notarizing every single app and does so based on the contents of said app rather than the security. Like, it would be fine if they were like, oh, we're not going to notarize malware, but they're doing it based on policy and saying, we don't like this app, we're not going to notarize it. That doesn't seem like the intended goal of the system, but they do it, so not much I can do about it. So, if you'll notice, I think I had a mention of this. There was, that's kind of small there, but there was that tweet from that one reporter there. People were mentioning, like, some stuff going on, and I've heard some, like, rumors of there potentially being something with, like, the DOJ bringing, like, something, but, like, I don't know if that's ever been, I don't know. I'm not really informed on if that's actually happening or not. Yeah. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so the thing is, I was talking about just about push notifications. There's this other really important layer on top, IDS, that's the end-to-end encryption identity server. Apple uses sort of this IDS, I guess you could call the encompassing thing a protocol, but like it's really you just talk to the server to get encryption keys. They use it for a lot of stuff. They use it for HomeKit. They use it for like peer-to-peer stuff when you're like sending an airdrop. If you actually bring them out of like AWDL is the wireless direct link they establish ad hoc between each other. If you bring them out of wireless range, it'll actually switch to doing it over the internet if possible, and it encrypts that using IDS. They use this for basically everything sort of device-to-device or user-to-user encryption. Yes?
Just for clarification, what is IDS stand for? It's not including detection.
I think it's identity services. Apple isn't always really clear at documenting these internal acronyms, but I'm pretty sure it's identity services. And basically, you authenticate with that, and you get sort of a bunch of auth tokens and auth certificates, and then you use that to publish your public keys. When you talk to the server, you publish your public keys. Then you can quote unquote query for other devices. You give them their email address or phone number, and it'll give them their public keys, and then you encrypt the message with that, and you send it off to them using APNS and the push tokens to route it. Right? There's a lot more complexity that goes on here. There's actually several revisions of this encryption scheme. There was the original one based on RSA, which is like pretty old now and doesn't have a lot of features you want in a modern messaging encryption system. You then have this pair EC based on the elliptic curve ECIES scheme. And then now we have pair tetra, they call it, and that's based on Apple's new PQ3 post-quantum encryption. I never implemented the post-quantum stuff because it sounds scary and not, I don't really understand it, but I did implement the elliptic curve and the RSA-based encryption. And in theory, they have stuff like Signal, like pre-keys, though I don't know, I'm not a cryptographer and I don't actually know how securely it was implemented, but it looked pretty fancy. So, and there's a whole scheme here where devices can publish sort of capabilities. So we actually sort of, and it let us, the system, there's a bunch of arbitrary flags, like what the device supports, like does it support these new encryption schemes? Does it support the fancy new emojis and voice messages and whatever new features they're adding? Edits were a thing they introduced around this time, and message deletions. Remember, iMessage didn't used to let you edit or delete messages at all. They now let you, and that was introduced around that time. But basically, we opted into the capabilities like edits and deletes, and we opted out of the post-quantum encryption and stuff that we didn't implement. And they were like, it totally worked. So that was great. Really, actually quite nice system, well engineered there. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, there's like a bunch of weird things how for IDS, you can talk to it over HTTP. But for, I guess, streamlining it, a lot of the time it would actually encode HTTP requests into push notifications and then send them to the IDS server's presence, like as if it was another device as a push notification. Oh yeah, I probably should have explained. It's not normal that you can send push notifications both ways through this like TCP socket. Normal apps can only receive them, but Apple apps can send notifications both ways, which is really interesting. Basically, they literally just set like a target push token and send the message out, and the APNS courier will go and route it for them, and it'll go and get delivered on the target device. So they just like use that feature heavily for anything that needs to be peer-to-peer, or not really peer-to-peer because you have that in the way, but yeah. So they encode HTTP over APNS. That's kind of weird. I'd always thought that was interesting. And obviously, this is a giant diagram of sort of the flow beeper mini used and stuff. There was a whole complicated process over here. Apple has two basically obfuscated algorithms they use. They call them Anisette and Absinthe. They really like naming these these obfuscated like attestation schemes after alcohol for some reason. But they're like, they're part of like the fair play sort of scheme of things. They're highly obfuscated, and we basically sidestepped a lot of it by throwing it in like QEMU or Unicorn or other emulators and just emulating it because we did not feel like decompiling it. Though I do have a friend who eventually wrote a tool that could do a bunch of fancy math and like decompile and deobfuscate this. They call it mixed Boolean algebra. That's like really annoying to deobfuscate, but it's a bunch of fancy math. You can, but I didn't have that at the time. So we just emulated it. And basically, Anisette is the one they use for their authentication protocol, which is called Grand Slam. That's what they use to authenticate Apple IDs. Anisette is part of the sort of second factor scheme in that you have sort of a blob you generate once of random data, and you feed it through this algorithm, and it spits out this magic thing that's valid for like 30 seconds or something. And you use that to prove you're the same device and that you're a legitimate Apple device, because only legitimate Apple devices have this magic algorithm. So it sort of accomplishes two goals. And so with that, if you implement the Grand Slam properly, you only need the two-factor authentication code once, because if you use the same blob and algorithm again and again, it can prove you're the same device and that you don't need two-factor authentication again. And if you ask for it, it will even let you generate your own two-factor authentication codes. This was actually a lot of work that happened after Beeper Mini, but basically the way Grand Slam and two-factor authentication codes work is kind of cursed in that they're random numbers. They're not like TOTP. It just generates a random number and sends it to the server. But the reason it does this is because the server keeps track of where the numbers come from, and depending on which device you enter, the server tells it what device it came from, and then sets up a peer-to-peer connection between your old device that like generated the code and your new device. And it uses that to sync keychain keys. So that's why you used to need to enter like an escrow passcode to get your keychain to work on a new device. Now you don't, because it will talk to your old device and sync the keychain peer-to-peer based on which two-factor authentication code you entered. So that's some interesting things that happened there. But that wasn't really relevant for us because we didn't really care. We implemented the bare minimum of that. But yeah, I think that's interesting. What was the other thing that was happening? Like this flow sort of has two sides. On the left side is like the Apple ID based login, which needed Grand Slam and all that. The right side looks significantly simpler. That's the phone number registration without an Apple ID. It is, except for the one snag being that you need SMS and you need to like talk to the carrier's gateway and get them to send you the magic SMS and verify it. But no Apple ID, so we preferred that for the most part. Over here, on the left-hand side, we're introducing sort of the second thing, which is Absinthe. Also, the Absinthe and Anisette have acronyms that I don't know what they stand for. Absinthe is sometimes called NAC, NAC, and the Anisette, which I was talking about earlier, is sometimes called ADI. Don't really know why. But basically, NAC and Absinthe, their whole thing is just proving that it's a legitimate Apple device, and for iPhones, that it's a device that is not iCloud locked, that's been properly like activated and is like allowed to, function. Right? If a device is iCloud locked, it's no longer allowed to use iMessage until it's unlocked, obviously, because it's no longer allowed to activate and get this magic certificate and do all this Absinthe stuff. For the most part, in the early days, we just sort of used the Mac algorithm, which is different from the iOS one, significantly simpler. And we just fed like random serial numbers into this emulated algorithm, and it spat out these validation data, we called it, that it needed. During the end of it, they started cracking down on that because they can tell what was used. Like it's basically just a like an encryption algorithm. So like they know the raw data that went into it. They can reverse it on the server side and know what serial numbers went into it. They started detecting when we reused it. So what we ended up doing towards the end of it was we tried to create like a pool of Macs, like real Macs, to generate it. Or we stole their serial numbers for some of it, and for the end of it, we used real Macs because they started using Secure Enclave just like they did on iPhones. But there was a whole second factor that went into this, was that there was sort of account scoring and device scoring that went on. And basically, the device that was like attesting for you got a score. Like we don't know what it was. We just observed the effects of how trusted Apple thinks it was. A brand new like M1 had just come out, right? A brand new M1 MacBook or a brand new iPhone 15 or whatever, that gets a very high trust score. An iPhone SE from many years ago gets one that's like lower, but it's still using hardware attestation, so it's better. Like a Windows serial, like I was talking about earlier, or something that was just a random serial number we made up, gets a very low score. And then your Apple ID or your phone number also has a secondary score. And that's how trusted Apple thinks your account is. If you send a lot of spam, they will ban your account. And you're like, when your score goes below a certain threshold, they ban your account. If your score is very high, like mine is, which is based on if you've made purchases with your Apple ID, if you have a bunch of recent devices tied to your Apple ID, your score goes up. My account somehow has a very high score. I used like totally invalid serial numbers, and it let me through. Because the account had a high enough score, I guess they add them together to counteract each other. Even if the device score is very low, it still worked. I created a brand new test Apple ID. It would not work with the low score stuff. If I had a higher score device, then it would work, right? Like, so it was sort of a balancing act, right? Yeah. Obviously, for Beeper Mini, it was hard to get high score stuff, so we had to work around a bunch of this stuff with a bunch of clever hacks. Like we would move them to an M1 Mac, like a brand new M1 Mac. Temporarily, we would sign in their Apple ID there to bump their Apple ID score, and then we would sign them in on one of the like randomized serial devices once their score was bumped up enough by signing in an M1 Mac. It was a whole thing. It was very fun. And then over here, we have a whole thing with APNS. I didn't really talk about this, but because it's a persistent TCP connection on Android, obviously that's kind of hard to achieve because the Android device might be off, or you might it might lose connection, or it might be asleep. It might also, you're just not allowed to do that per Play Store rules, like just keep your app alive at all times. So the solution to this was that the push notifications, obviously, at the push notification level, you can't see the messages, right? Because there's this end-to-end encryption on top. So what we did was we sent the push notification like courier certificate credentials to our server, and our server would make the TCP connection on its behalf. So our server could see the raw messages, but not like they were end-to-end encrypted, so you couldn't actually decrypt them, right? But we could see when a push notification came in, and then we would wake up the device using Firebase push notifications, which you're allowed to use on Android. And then we would disconnect from the APNS. It would reconnect, get the message resent to it, and then go and be on its way, right? And then as soon as it went to sleep, it would tell the server. The server would remake the APNS connection and sit there listening to wake it up again at some point. So there's a bunch of complicated architecture that went into that, although, I mean, it's not really. Yeah. Do I have, okay. So after Beeper Mini is dead for a while, I have this friend who rewrote all of it in Rust. Beeper Mini wrote it in Go. I wrote it in Python, the original version. This guy wrote it in Rust. But he is they're very dedicated. They've been doing this for like 2 years straight or something. I mean, like you saw the timeline. This was like the beginning of 2024, right? So then all of 2024, now most of 2025, almost 2 years. They've been basically doing this, and they've gotten a lot further than I did. They reverse engineered, a hacky version of FaceTime, iCloud Share Out. They figured out all the iCloud keychain stuff I was talking about. So I just wanted to mention that this actually, there's still work being done on this. Rust push is like sort of the Rust implementation and continuance of this that is very good and very complete. And also data center scale iPhones. This was something I was working on with them for Open Bubbles, which is the app that uses this Rust library, right? There's an app. But basically the problem is, as I mentioned, phone number registration is no longer allowed to happen with Macs. You have to have an iPhone. They have to go through a complicated activation process. Sidestep all that, just get real iPhones that are already activated and just, use them, because you only need this this validation data, quote unquote, and a bunch of other things. You only need it when you're registering, and you register with the IDS server at a minimum, or like the worst case is every 30 minutes, but it goes up like exponentially. So the second time you re-register, maybe it's like once a day, then it's every month, maybe at the end case. If you miss a registration, then it sort of resets, and that's annoying. But as long as you don't miss a re-registration, it goes up pretty far, so you don't really need to talk to these iPhones very often. But basically, we literally just assign one iPhone to one person who's paying us like some nominal fee per month, and we use the iPhone's identifiers to allow them onto iMessage. So, I mean, that works pretty well. I mean, he's got like 400 or so iPhones right now. So, and a lot of that was done through a vulnerability I found in the mobile backup service. I got a CVE for that, and I actually reported it twice because they didn't fix it properly the first time. Not really sure. Anyway, and that basically allowed me to do arbitrary file read-write as root on the iPhone on iOS 18. So that was really cool. It's actually one of the very last major public vulnerabilities, I think, that let you do anything really cool, because you could rewrite config files and stuff. But we're actually using it on iOS 15, where there's already jailbreaks, and we're just using it as a really convenient way to deploy jailbreaks at scale, because it's 100% reliable vulnerability rather than like a kernel vulnerability that requires like some deterministic or not deterministic, kernel heap has to be arranged in the right way. It might fail 1 time out of 10. That's kind of annoying when you're deploying 400 devices, or the kernel might panic after a while. So this was just a really convenient way You just had to plug it into USB, and we like over a USB, we wiped the device, we set it up fresh, we used the vulnerability to deploy our app. The app made a connection to the server with a WebSocket. It did all this automatically. So that's, I think he's doing that today. But yeah, I'm not really involved in that anymore. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was cool as well. Is there any other questions? Anything anyone's interested here? Yeah. They didn't give me a bounty for the first one, but then when I resubmitted it, they did. I don't really know what was going on there, why they said the first one was ineligible, but for the same bug, they said it. Well, I don't. Anyway. Yeah, Apple's bounty review process is kind of random sometimes. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, but obviously there's a lot more detail in lots of these parts, but I don't really want to spend like all day, ranting about random details. So if no one has any questions, I might just leave it here. Just come ask me if you have any questions, I guess. Oh. I mean, it's like 5 minutes long, so I don't really know the. And also, does the audio work? No, it doesn't go through Zoom. Okay, well, you can't hear the audio because it won't go through Zoom, but I mean, it's just like, I wanted to fast forward. Like, I think it was like 2 minutes. There's me like talking on the news and CBS Mornings. This is really laggy, but that was the thing that happened. It was pretty cool. It was actually in Eric's that's him there. That's Eric, the CEO, in his house because he was trying to give like I guess the branding of like a San Francisco like startup working out of a garage or whatever vibe. So yeah, that was. There were other sections in here, but like yeah. If you want, maybe I can send if you come up to me later the full video, but or nobody cares. But yeah.
So you said to Hayden that you wanted to be able to review the video before it was posted on YouTube?
Yeah, I might. Ideally, I could send it to someone at work and get them to review it.
Thank you, Ben and James, for presenting on your
I can
interesting topic.
either.
Have a good one.
I don't know how big the file will be, but I can send you the raw video that was just recorded. If that's all right.
Yeah, or you could like post it on YouTube as like a private video.
Yeah, you're right. I could private it or unlisted. No, just private. I'll edit it and private it, and then whenever you are ready, message me, and then I can make it public. Okay, we're cool. Awesome. Make sure that if you opened one of the wells in the floor to plug in your laptops, that you close them. Thank you.
I thought it was good. Nice. I mean, look, it's hard when you talk like that. Dude, yeah, that was that's crazy.
Live stream.
That was brilliant.